say, kids, what time is it?
Kirk Allen was the first live-action Superman in the 1948 and 1950 Superman serials. He played him as a true blue Boy Scout right out of the comic book. George Reeves hit the small screen in 1952 with The Adventures of Superman, which ran until 1958, after which he was part of several stage adaptations of Superman before his untimely demise in 1959. Other actors that have worn the red and blue spandex to much acclaim include Dean Cain, who donned the cape in the popular ABC series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, which ran 4 seasons from 1993 to 1997. Tom Welling, who played a young Clark Kent in the series Smallville, which ran 10 seasons on the WB and CW networks respectively. And in cinema, we've seen Brandon Routh wear his undies on the outside for 2006's Superman Returns, and most recently, Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel in the DC Extended Universe, which took Superman into new territory as an unsure, brooding type of character who grapples with a cynical society and choosing to be a hero. But for me, none have portrayed the last son of Krypton's Kal-El with so much charm, optimism, and enthusiasm like Christopher Reeve, who, with director Richard Donner, made us all believe that a man could fly in 1978's Superman the movie. Reeves' Superman leaped from the pages of the comics, and his clumsy, insecure alter ego Clark Kent was a portrayal for the ages. The Reeve Superman film spawned 3 inferior sequels that ran out of gas in 1987, succumbing to declining box office. The 1978 score by John Williams has also become the quintessential theme for all things Superman to this day. Margot Kidder was also, in my opinion, far and away the best screen adaptation of Lois Lane. Kidder's snarky, cocksure, impetuous, Pulitzer-driven reporter for Perry White's Daily Planet has set a benchmark that has not been rivaled by any actress for the role since. For me, it doesn't get any better than Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, and Gene Hackman in Richard Donner's Superman the movie. It's the gold standard. Which brings us to the latest screen adaptation of Clark and Lois with the CW's Superman and Lois, starring Tyler Hoechlin as Clark Kent Kal-El, and Elizabeth Tulloch as Lois Lane, and it co-stars Alex Garfin as Jordan Kent, Jordan Elsass as Jonathan Kent, and Emmanuel Criqui as Lana Lang. And now my thoughts on Episode 5, The Best of Smallville. Hey everybody, Keith here with another Superman and Lois review, this time Episode 5, Best of Smallville. Let's get started, shall we? So the episode opens with uptick in Superman activity across the globe. So Superman is patrolling Metropolis and other big cities, which is a good thing. As we know, General Lane was in Clark's ear about being distracted, about having his priorities out of whack, and telling him that the danger in the DOD was upset with him because without Superman overhead, it kind of gave the signal that, it was open season for criminals. And then Thaddeus Kilgrave, of course, told him the same thing when he escaped from prison and told him that, he made it easy because there was no Superman presence around. So the scene then cuts to Smallville, where the Kents are preparing for the Smallville Harvest Festival. They're shucking corn and getting arts and crafts ready and getting donations put together to take to this thing. And I don't know, I've spent time in the Midwest, but not during maybe the autumn festival season. But here in New England, where I am, every autumn there are tons of agricultural fairs, which are kind of fun, a big deal. You get to eat a lot of carny food and go on rides and play games and see concerts and all that kind of stuff. And it's something to look forward to as winter approaches here on the East Coast anyway, or in New England anyway. So next up, we're at high school, and Sarah Cushing approaches Jordan and kind of asks him on a date to the festival. And Jordan doesn't know how to respond. He's, awkward and whatnot, and can't process the fact that she wants to go with him. And so Jonathan has to step in and say, yeah, he'll be there, no problem, good go. And Jonathan, of course, has a bounce in his step because we learned that Eliza, his girlfriend that we met in episode 1, is on her way from Metropolis to go to the festival that evening with him until his phone rings and it's bad juju time for Jonathan Kent. Eliza dumps him via phone in the middle of school, which is a really low-rent thing to do, Eliza. Not cool. Jonathan plays it like a pro, but you can tell that You can tell his frustration with Smallville is really starting to add up, and it seems like he's one of those. He's a tea kettle ready to pop at any moment. He's been so good-natured about every setback so far, but I think we're going to see as we move on. Not anymore. So, whoops, missed one here. There we go. So the scene then cuts to Clark and Lois, and they're preparing a bunch of donations to bring to the festival. And Clark makes mention of this one. There's a little wooden box, almost like a jewelry box. And he tells Lois that, like, that can't go. Doesn't say why, but he's really concerned about her donating that wooden box. So more on that to come. So next up, it cuts to Sharon Powell. Remember Sharon Powell, who was missing her son and went to the Smallville Gazette to talk to Lois and Chrissy about finding him. And all she had was this cryptic voicemail that he thought he was going to die when he went to work that day. Well, he's back. Here he is, Derek, her son Derek. And he really can't remember anything. He's got this really fuzzy memory about what happened. Says all he remembers is getting his first paycheck from Morgan Edge. And then he woke up outside of a church. Lois starts pushing him about what about the voicemail where you thought you were in trouble and all this kind of stuff. And he said something about the job not being what he expected and he was terrified and all this stuff. And he doesn't really remember. And his explanation is that he has a bump on the head.
Well, the doctors said that with a hit to the head like that, it might take some time for his memories return.
So Chrissy right away smells the BS, and she confronts Sharon on it, and she says, what are you talking about? This is not A-okay. Not everything is wine and roses here. Don't you remember that when we went looking for Derek, this hulking Kryptonian, well, they don't know he's from Krypton, but he had the superpowers. This hulking guy with superpowers tried to kill her. And she just continues to try to just basically blow it off. And at this point, it's kind of funny because then where Lois is always the one, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And, she's relentless in her pursuit of the truth. This time it flips and Chrissy's the one that wants the truth. And Lois is kind of being devil's advocate, saying, well, slow your roll, girl.
That phony story was all sorts of rehearsed. I know. Sharon almost got killed by someone who works for Morgan Edge.
Yep.
I'm acting like you right now?
That's because we both know this is a big story.
So Lois is kind of seeing that there's a much bigger thing going on here. Chrissy wants to just cut to the chase on this one instance. And you can see Lois is veteran savvy, coming from a bigger newspaper and all her experience to kind of pump the brakes. This is one piece of a bigger puzzle. And we don't want to expose ourselves if we just go stampeding in after this one little story, right? Basically what she's trying to tell her. So Captain Luthor is sitting outside the Gazette, and he's basically listening in on this. And he's talking to this artificial intelligence. He's got this computer lab in the back. He's driving an RV, and he's got this computer lab in the back. And he basically says that if I tail Lois... My stupid Alexa is talking for no reason. Superman's never far behind. So, next we see Derek and... Wait a minute. Did I miss one again? No. Okay. They go to donate at the Harvest Festival, and Derek says he just doesn't... he wants to go get the rest of the donations out of the car, and after he leaves, he calls Lar. And he says that he's got all the headaches and he's suffering from all this pain and he feels like he's burning up. And then we see his eyes glow red like he's got heat vision, which is not cool.
Hello? Are you there?
So he loses control and burns the donation center down, whatever you would call it. I mean, it's a community center, maybe a rec center. Burns the place down, and we're in some trouble here. So meanwhile, back at the the Kent residence, Clark has this flashback for when he was going to go to the Harvest Festival and try to like impress Lana. So he's getting all dressed in his cool bowling shirt or whatnot. And he's probably about 16 years old. He's about Jonathan and Jordan's age, maybe a little older. And we find out that Lana is actually dating Kyle Cushing. So we learn now that they're high school sweethearts. So in the flashback too, while he's talking to his mother about that, he hears trouble downtown. So he zips down and he's got a ski mask on, and he confronts these two guys who are like ripping off an electronics store. They're stealing TVs and whatnot. And a third guy comes out and he busts up the robbery as the mysterious masked avenger, if you will.
Put it back.
So coming out of that, we see the community center is like an inferno at this point. The firefighters have arrived. It seems like they got everybody out, except they find out that one of the firefighters had actually not returned. So Kyle goes in to save the guy. Meanwhile, Clark had come out of the flashback because the sound of the commotion snapped him out. He zips down to the scene, puts the fire out with his ice breath or freeze breath or whatever you want to call it. And gets it under control quickly. And at this point, he tells Lois that he saw Sharon Powell there. Not Derek, but Sharon. And she seemed to be kind of wandering around looking for someone. So Lois said she's going to go ask around at that point. So back at the old Clark Kent residence, or the Kent residence, Clark has some pizza for the boys, and they come home. And Jonathan just sulks by. So Lois goes to console him, because Jordan tells them that Liza dumped him and he's having a rough day. And at this point, like, Jonathan just starts, well, you see his disillusionment with Smallville. He kind of starts to trash the place. There's going to be a crack in the Kent family dynamic occurring here. So meanwhile, Lois goes back to the fire scene and she has a bit of a confrontational interview, if you will, with Kyle. Kyle has a problem with her because she's trying to take down Morgan Edge, or trying to find dirt on Morgan Edge, and he thinks Morgan Edge is one of the best things to happen to the town. So she answers this question, tells him that this guy, Tom Mitchell, the firefighter, was his best man at his wedding. He's a really good friend, and looks like his injuries are very, very severe. It kind of dismisses Lois. And at this point, she just says, I have one more question. And she pulls out a picture of Derek Powell and asks if he's seen him around. And Kyle says he saw him there earlier in the day. And they kind of, for a moment, Kyle and Lois have this mutual, like, respect for one another. Like, is this guy an arsonist? Did this guy start this fire? And they kind of want to work together to figure that out. Because at the end of the day, Kyle's a very flawed character, but he loves the town first and foremost. And if Lois can find out whoever did that, he's on board with helping her at that point. So Lois then calls Chrissy, and she says she's pretty much convinced that Derek Powell's the cause of some of these weird things that are taking place around town. So at this point, Captain Luthor, he's posing as a tech reporter from Reuters, calls himself Marcus Bridgewater, and comes up to Lois and says that he's been looking for her and he wants to team up and help her look into Morgan Edge. He also informs her that he used to work for Lex Luthor, so he kind of knows how to deal with these megalomaniac rich guys. So Lois is kind of dismissive, gives him her business card, and says, call me as soon as you come up with one decent thing. Doesn't agree to help him. She wants to see him prove himself. So at this point, Sharon Powell returns to the Gazette and talks to Chrissy and says that Derek has suddenly just vanished out of nowhere. After all this time, he comes back. He's back one day and then sends her a text message that says, I need space. And she's really kind of upset with this whole thing. It's very out of character for him. So Chrissy takes her phone and uses the crapple find my iPhone thing, and gets the location of where Derek is. Of course, she does this. It's just kind of funny. I mean, if I love this show, but this one, like, she walks like 2 feet away with the woman's phone, does that, pretty obviously, and then goes and hands the phone back without saying anything to Sharon about it. And Sharon is oblivious to it somehow. But hey, we got to move the story, right? So next up, Jonathan comes to Clark and asks him if it's okay that Sarah can come with them to the festival that night. And Clark's like, is that his date? And Jordan, I mean, did I say Jonathan? I meant Jordan. Jordan kind of, oh, shucks. And Clark's reaction here, and I want to play the clip. Clark's reaction's awesome. And again, one of the reasons I really love this show is Tyler Hoechlin's Clark Kent is so good. It really harkens back to the Christopher Reeve Clark Kent to me.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah! Okay,
All right.
yes!
All right.
Yes, of course
Dad,
you can.
Dad.
What? This is what I was talking about, Harvest Festival.
Be cool. If I have to hear anything else about this stupid Harvest Fest.
So again, there at the end of the clip, we see Jonathan he's pretty much had it with listening to this crap about the Harvest Festival, about Smallville, about this small town community. So he just basically unloads on Clark. He just vents. He says he wants to move back to Metropolis. He's lost his girlfriend. He probably won't play football again. He doesn't have any friends. Like, lost all his good friends back home. And he just wants out. And Clark tells him it'll get better. He says, I had the same issues, when I was young. And Jonathan says, oh, what kind of issues? Like flying to Greece or doing laps around Saturn and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, look, Smallville's my kryptonite. And he tells Clark that he's got a friend back in Metropolis with an extra room, and he'll just go move in with that guy. And Clark tells him, no, you're not doing anything. And then Jonathan kind of erupts and says, you know what? Maybe I'll do it anyway. You told Jordan he couldn't play football, and he went and did it anyway, and you let him do it. So maybe I'll just move away and do it anyway. And what are you going to do to stop it? And Clark just kind of lets him vent, and then lets the two boys go to the festival. He doesn't get confrontational at all. And then he goes back into another flashback with him and his mother, Martha, about basically having the same kind of discussion or argument where Clark's like, I got to get out of this town. I'm destined for bigger things. Dad said so. And she's trying to hold him back a little bit and say, you're too young. He taught you certain values, and you have to, at the right time, you can make that move, but you're too young at this point. And so he kind of, Clark's reflecting, and this is why he didn't have a problem with Jonathan just venting and unloading, because he's been there. So it was really, really good scene, I thought. So then it cuts to Kyle. He comes home. He tells Lana that he found out this guy, Tom Mitchell, the firefighter, has probably going to have permanent lung damage. His career as a firefighter is probably over. And of course, being so close to him really affected him. So then Lana comes up and hugs him and smells booze all over him. And he's like, she goes, have you been drinking? He goes, well, yeah, me and the guys went and had a drink after work, because of what happened. More than one. He's like plastered. So she gets pissed off because they were supposed to be at the festival and they're supposed to be managing the donation table again. And so she just packs up and walks out and takes, oh God, what's her name? Sophia? No, not Sophia. The younger, I can't remember her name. The younger Cushing girl with her, and leaves Sarah there. Sarah kind of unverbally says that she'll stay behind. I think it's just to make sure that Kyle gets to bed or whatever without causing any more family damage at that point. So next we find out that, whoops, wait a minute. I missed one. There we go. So at the festival, Jonathan and Jordan run into these two guys from the football team, and Jonathan runs up and starts drinking out of this nipper thing. And Jordan's kind of not happy with that, and it's clear that Jonathan's rebelling now. He's just had enough, and he's going to just go nuts and do whatever he wants. So, and meanwhile, at the Cushing house, Sarah brings Kyle a sandwich, and he's like passing out on the couch because he's just shithoused. And Kyle tries to bond by like singing her this song from when she was a little girl, and she just gets really angry with him and gets up and stomps out and leaves him there on the couch and goes to the festival, which she's late for her and Jordan's date. So then we find out, while this is taking place, that Derek Powell and Lar are lovers. So because of this scene, they're making out, and Derek tells her that he can't control his powers anymore. And she says she can fix it. And they walk into this like weird old warehouse building, and the camera pulls back, and there watching is Chrissy from the Gazette. So she's on the prowl. She used the Find My Phone, and she found him.
What is this?
Your father found it in the pod when you arrived. I don't know what it does or what it's for. I just know it belongs to you.
So Clark's daydreaming. He's looking out the window at the barn and everything, and he has this flashback to the wooden box. That's the magic wooden box that he didn't want Lois to donate earlier. And we saw here that Martha had the Kryptonian shard in there. The one we know from past iterations of Superman that will help him go to build the Fortress of Solitude and tell him his history from Krypton. So Clark is just kind of putting his teenage years back together in his mind as he's dealing with his now disgruntled teenage son. So meanwhile, at this warehouse thing, Lar takes Derek and puts him into this like really creepy looking MRI kind of tube, and then fires up this thing, these spinning, you can see here, like fire going around him and something. And I guess the idea is just trying to suck the excess whatever's happening to him, like he's losing control, so maybe it's pulling some of the excess radiation out of his body or something. I don't know. They don't really explain it. So meanwhile, back at the festival, drunk Jonathan intrudes on Jordan and Sarah, who are kind of bonding over like their emotional issues that they have, with troubled teens and whatnot. And he walks up and he just totally embarrasses Jordan. He tells these guys it's his first date ever. And Sarah gets up and just rips him a new one and embarrasses all three of them. And she basically calls out Jonathan in particular because Jordan says, well, he's going through a rough time. He got dumped. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, you want to talk about rough times? Let's throw down here. Let's compare notes. And just trashes him, saying he comes from a perfect family and he's got a real perfect life and he doesn't know what real problems are. And then she just stomps off and leaves Jordan standing there. And at this point, Jonathan is at least sober enough to realize that he just really screwed up for his brother. But in typical fashion with this show, the brothers are there for each other. Now, up to this point, it's been the other way around in a way. Like Jordan's been the one going through all the neuroses, and Jonathan has been the one there propping him up over and over again. This time it's flip-flopped. So now, Jonathan just completely destroyed Jordan's night and embarrassed the crap out of him in front of a couple of these football players. And he apologizes to him, and, well, you'll see how Jordan handles it.
I'm sorry. It's all right. Just get you some water, okay? Okay. I'm sorry.
And they walk off, arm around the shoulder, and that's, this is what I really like about the show. These two brothers are so real, and they just feel they're just always there for each other, no matter what the other one's going through or how they've treated each other. So, yeah, it's a great scene. So next up, they come stumbling over and they find Clark and Lois. Clark had just told Lois that Jonathan's upset and wants to go back to Metropolis and whatnot. And they smell the booze. Well, Clark notices right away. He goes, oh my God, he's been drinking, because he's kind of wobbly and whatnot. And Lois gets really upset. and tells them to get a ride share and go straight home. They've had enough of this behavior, and that's that for them. Harvest Festival ruined for the Kent boys. While this is happening, Lois gets a phone call, and it's Chrissy, and she's like, not now. And Chrissy says, wait a minute, no, I've been following Derek. I know where he is. And Lars got him in this weird, freaky machine, and all this stuff's going on in this warehouse. And Clark, of course, hears the conversation. Out he goes. So he arrives at the warehouse, and he wants answers. He asks him what this machine is, what's going on here. And Derek just says, I'll take this outside. And he flies up through the roof and has Superman pursue him. And then there's this really long, high-speed aerial pursuit. And I just got to say that most of the effects in this show are very good. But that pursuit, the two guys flying, did not look very good at all. Really kind of fake. And as they're doing this high-speed pursuit, Derek's like blowing up barns, and he's lighting cornfields on fire, trying to slow Clark down. And then, Clark's using the ice breath again, the cold breath, to put them out. Then it cuts to Captain Luthor in his RV, and he gets an alert that tells him, Superman's location, that he's right nearby. And he's kind of surprised to find out that he's actually in Smallville, and he calls him Kal-El. So he says it's Kal-El's in Smallville, kind of thing. So he follows in the RV, and then gets out and pulls out this bazooka-looking weapon thing. The AI targets Superman. It's kind of cool how they do it. It's kind of, he aims to an empty spot and he shoots it there, and it's timed out so that Superman flies right into it. And boom. So there's a big red explosion over Smallville. It's kind of funny because nobody here really seems to even notice it. But Superman comes out of this. There's a crater in the ground. He kind of emerges unharmed and tells Derek, look, I can help you. I know how to deal with this. And Derek says, no, you can't help me. I'm already dead. And he starts to vibrate. And
this is your one.
Geez.
Wait!
So he vibrates and kind of just, it reminded me of Iron Man 3, the Extremis thing. They just kind of explode into molten lava or something. It was clearly like a suicide. I think Derek had just kind of given up trying to control it, and realizes at some point there's just nothing he can do to stop it from happening.
This is your one get out of jail free card.
It is?
Wait, seriously?
Jonathan, I told you I know how you feel, and I do. When I was just a couple years older than you, I did leave home.
So back at the house, Jonathan came to apologize. Clark gives him the pass, as you heard. He said he went through the exact same thing and said that, he did leave home. Unlike Jonathan, who's threatening to leave home, Clark did leave home. And he said he felt really bad about it afterward because Martha only had so much time. And he missed it because he was selfish and he had to go, find himself. So he just asks Jonathan, can you just hang out a little longer, give Smallville a little more time. If it doesn't work out, we'll discuss options. And then he gives Jonathan that wooden box that had the kryptonite in it, or the crystal shard, and it's empty. And Jonathan says, "Why'd you give me this empty box?" And he said, "Your mother, my mother gave that to me, and I'm giving it to you." Kind of a, you're passing. Everyone's done that in their families. They pass down something, but I think he wants Jonathan to use it to put something special in that box, to always remind him of a pivotal point in his life, I think. So at that point, Lois calls him a softie, and then they get into a quick discussion about Derek's suicide, and Clark says that the way it played out reminded him a lot of what's going on with Tag Harris. You remember from previous episodes, Tag Harris was the wide receiver on the football team who was at the keg party where Jonathan used his heat vision and ignited some chemicals, and then Tag ended up with these superpowers that he can't control, and he's vibrating all the time, and The DOD now has him for observation and whatnot. So Clark just notices, like, this is kind of weird that these two things seem eerily familiar. And Lois deduces, because she's Lois Lane, that Morgan Edge in that mine probably has something to do with all of this, because, you know, Derek was involved with the mining operation in the other town, and now Tag had that happen to him, and they were having that party at the mine site. So she's going to go look into it, of course. So meanwhile, the next scene, the Kents show up. There's Lana's there collecting donations again. Everything was lost in the fire, so they're trying to kind of quickly galvanize the community back to give whatever they can, whatever's left, to donate. And Lana tells them that Morgan Edge has donated, like, everything back. Like, basically, he found out what was lost and paid for everything to be replaced, and then some, as she put it. And then she invites the Kents to come with her to see one of the biggest donations to the community. And it's a bench, and it's out in front of the train station in town, and it's dedicated to Martha Kent, as you can see, the best of Smallville, which is really heartwarming moment for the Kents and the whole town. And when Clark sits down on it, he has another flashback to the day he left Smallville with his mother, Martha. And when it comes back, he's sitting there with Lois, and he says that he was really selfish for doing that to Martha. And Lois says to him, well, don't think of it that way. She let you go because she loved you, and she wanted to do what was best for you. And then another great moment, Clark's kind of response, he draws the parallel back to Jonathan, or both kids. And once again, the family chemistry here with Clark and Lois just shines through. So I just clipped this little moment because these are the little moments I think are what are the staple of this show.
Our own kids are talking about leaving home. It feels like they were just born.
It's easy for you to say you didn't have to go through 27 hours of labor.
That's true.
Just real, just genuine. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't forward the plot. It doesn't make any great statement. It's just a wonderful moment. And it's a very real response from Clark when she says, you didn't go through 27 hours labor. And he goes, well, that's true. So I like those kind of things. And that's what makes to me this show feel really grounded. So meanwhile, that was going on, and it was all being observed by Captain Luthor, who's... we still don't know what this dude's up to. I mean, we know that somehow he was part of this Superman Holocaust, if you will, on his world, and he's coming here to try to stop that from happening again. But his tactics seem a little shady, and it's really interesting. And then you still wonder if him and Lane have some kind of tie together. So I'm sure that's going to play out in future episodes. But so he's observing, and then he goes back into his RV, and he tells his little AI, which looks like an Alexa kind of thing, like a ball, what he saw. And the AI reminds him, it says, this is not the Lois Lane from your world. You got to remember that. And he says, she's exactly the same in every way, except for who she's married to. And we see that on his world, Lois Lane was married to him. So now we find this little extra motivation going on here. This is a man caught between two realities, and I think he's blurring the lines a little bit. In fact, when they show this flashback, they blur it a lot. It's like shaking and blurring, kind of showing that he's blurring. He's not able to separate his world from this world in certain instances, especially where Lois is probably concerned. So meanwhile, missed one here. There we go. Sarah apologizes to Jordan for how she acted at the festival, and wants him to apologize to Jonathan for her, and then clobbers Jordan with the worst thing a dude ever wants to hear, especially when you're in high school. Can we be friends? And she puts him in the friend zone, and you can see the disappointment on his face. He tries to hide it. He's happy to be her friend because they get to hang out, but he's realizing, I'm in the friend zone. That's just the worst, man. That's the worst. So, meanwhile...
Hi. What did you do to me?
And tags him, basically, and just relentlessly pummels him. Tag says to him, I know you did this to me. So whoever Tag's been dealing with at maybe the DOD or if it's Lane himself has pretty much informed him that this accident was no accident. So he beats Jordan to a pulp and cuts to black, and that's our episode, gang. So hope you liked the review. Sorry about a couple of the technical glitches there. I'm using something different this time, and I've got to work out the kinks. But really good, fun episode. It flew by. Just gets better and better. I can't wait to do episode 6. So love to hear your comments. Leave some below. Smash the like button if you're so inclined. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell to be notified every time we drop new content. And we will see you for episode 6 very, very, very soon. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, make sure you click the little bell icon to be notified anytime someone from our show drops new content here. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Say, kids, what time is that?